Quisha, I'm so glad to finally speak with you. I was watching you on Facebook and just some of the things that you talk about, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I found a kindred spirit. And that's so rare because a lot of times, especially where I live, I'm like the only minority.
Yeah.
And when there are other minorities, they don't share the same kind of sentiments. So
Yeah.
having the conversation and finding out like how you got to this place, especially because you had said that you weren't always, um, you didn't always have the same ideological views that you have today. So
True.
I'm super excited to get into that conversation. So thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my gosh. Thanks, Carrie, for having me. It's such an honor.
So I just want to hear your story. Just start with how did you grow up?
Sure. So I'm like I always say I'm like half and half. I'm half Southern, half Northern. So I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, and we I grew up up until 13 in Lake City, Florida, which is a very small rural town. And my family moved to Connecticut when I was 13. So I graduated college up, I'm sorry, graduated high school up there, lived in New York for a little bit. And so I wanted to be a singer at one point in time because I sang. And, living close to New York, I wanted to pursue that. So I was in the music industry for quite a bit. And being a woman of faith, even back then, I just couldn't get with a lot of the stuff that was going on in the music industry. And so I ended up, turning down a major record deal. And yeah, and I moved to Miami, well, we're divorced now, but met my children's father. We got married and had two babies and, just was living life. And then right after the 2016 election, I was having a conversation with a close family relative, and we were talking about Black Lives Matter. And I just we were talking about it, and I said, well, I'm going to go look up the numbers about unarmed Black men being shot and Black on Black crime, because at this point in time, I was a total liberal, believed everything on CNN and MSNBC, and just didn't question anything. I didn't question anything. I just believed what they said. And so when I went to go look up the numbers, it was clear that there was more of a problem in Black neighborhoods than there was with unarmed Black men being shot. And I feel like I always have to say this, that doesn't mean that anyone that is killed unjustly by a, law enforcement officer, obviously that needs to be, justice needs to be served. But there was clearly a problem when we were looking at the riots and the, BLM and all of that. When you compare that to what was going on in Black neighborhoods, it's like that was not clearly, like, at the very minimum, we need to be doing both. At the
Right.
minimum, at the very minimum, that like we have a problem. And so it just really made me question why, like, what exactly was I believing? Because I really thought that, you know, unarmed Black men being shot by the police was like a serious detrimental problem, and when I saw those numbers, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, something's not right here. And it prompted me to keep digging. So found Dr. Thomas Sowell, found Walter Williams, Milton Friedman, and I just had never heard the conservative ideas, principles, values. I had never heard them before. And certainly never heard them much articulated in the way that Thomas Sowell does, which was very intellectual and factual, and it just made a lot of sense, just some of it just common sense. And so it was really almost like a physical reaction that I had, Carrie. It was like I felt duped. I felt lied to. I was pissed, because I felt like I'm pretty smart. How come I don't know this? Like, people need to know this, because there are so many Black Americans that walk around not knowing Black American history, not knowing Black American success, not knowing Black American anything positive. Everything that we're told, it's all negative. And it's just such a lopsided situation. And yeah, I was mad. I was mad. I was sad. I was a bunch of stuff. And so I was sitting on my couch one day, and I'm just dealing with all of this because I don't think people really understand, when you grow up, most of us, most Black Americans are, you grow up kind of hearing the same things. If you're Black, you got to work harder than white folks. If you are, America's racist, or, we just hear these things. And so when you come into a different knowledge, it kind of really shakes you, because pretty much everybody that I knew was just loyal to the Democrats. I mean, there is a weird cult like loyalty to Democrats in Black America.
Would you call
Anyway,
it a brainwashing? I mean, um,
it is.
yeah. Have you read or heard of Manning Johnson?
No.
Okay. I only recently stumbled across him, and he wrote about a book called Color, Communism, and
Oh,
Common Sense.
I have.
Right?
That's what I was thinking, but I wasn't sure. Oh, yes, I
Yes.
have read that. Yeah.
And it was like that. It was a matter of just feeling like, what what have we been taught? And
Yeah.
why were we taught this?
Hmm.
And I would agree. Like, normally I tell people, I don't want to come off as this angry person,
Hmm.
but I'm pissed.
Right.
Like, like what in the heck? And for how long have how many generations
Mm,
have people been told this garbage
yeah.
that
Lied
has
to.
taught them to be bitter?
Yeah.
That's how I feel, and I know that that can be a controversial thing. People are like, I'm not bitter," but you're like, well, you kind of are, because
Hmm.
you have hate in your heart.
Yeah.
And why do you hold this hate?
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
get it. I'm sorry to my audience. I'm working with a new camera and I'm looking down a lot because I'm
That's
not.
me too. So you're over here on my, so I'm like
I
back in your.
know, just trying to figure that out. But it's an interesting place to come from, and you feel betrayed.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think brainwashed is another good word, and I think probably the best and most accurate word is used.
Yeah. I think it's all, I was, when I started to learn these things, as a woman of faith, my family are people of faith as well, Christian faith. And when I was showing this is why I use the word cult, because as believers, when you show what the Democrats stand for, and you line that up next to the Bible, clearly they don't go together. And and the loyalty to the Democrat Party over the Bible, that's weird. That is bizarre. Like, I think that's why I say cult, because to me, only a cult, and I think brainwashed cult, kind of like, same thing to me. Only brainwashed people, only cultish people would do something like that, where something could go directly against the one thing that you say guides your entire life. You're going to go against God for these people? That's deep. That's deep.
Yeah. Well, and then there's also that for Black churches, and I'm interested in finding out where you have a different perspective on this, because for Black churches, social justice and biblical justice have been married together. In fact, I would say oftentimes it seems that social justice is more important than what the Bible actually says.
Hmm. Oh, I totally agree that we have this Black liberation ideology in Black churches. And it is awful. It's something that started, back in the 60s and 70s. And it's
Actually, you
just
can go as far as the 30s.
30s. Okay. Yeah,
The,
you're teaching me something.
the
And
30s is when the 30s is when Russian um, kind of the USSR came over here and
yep,
were like, how can we start to corrupt America? And
right.
they realized that the strongest place to start was with Black churches.
Mm,
And so they got in, and in the theology, they started teaching them, watering down faith, because
mhm.
Black people all the way through, like, after slavery, had such strong faith.
Yep,
Something had to carry them through, but
absolutely.
that something was generally a relationship with Christianity,
Hmm.
mixed with some of the tribal history of Africa, but it was still a strong and a resilient faith. And then
Hmm.
all of a sudden it became something different, and it became something where being victimized became virtuous.
No, I was just gonna say, like, that whole victim thing, and it is so antithetical to the Bible. Like, I remember when I was sitting on my couch and I was dealing with all of this, and God is like, I've already told you who you are. I said, the creator of the universe, I've already told you that you're more than a conqueror. Why in the world are you even having thoughts about you can't achieve because of you, because your melanin count? Like, it did not make any sense, and God showed me that that was double-minded, and the Bible says that a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. You can't think that you got black girl magic and all of this stuff and then turn around and talk about your oppressed. That doesn't go together. And so in that moment, where I was having this transformative moment, God told me that my skin color had become an idol in my life, and that was so transformative. And people think when they hear idol that they think worship like almost like the golden calf worship in the wilderness. Like, it wasn't like that. It was that my life was based around me being black. Everything was based around me being black instead of me being a Christian. And that was offensive to God, because he said, thou shalt not have no other gods before me. And he meant that thing. He meant it. And he showed me how that is not why we have varieties of skin color for you to walk around here as if you had anything to do with it anyway. You didn't have anything to do with it, and you want to either, be proud of it or feel like you're a victim of it. Like, either one of those is bad for
Right.
believers. It just changed my life. I felt like 10,000 pounds was lifted off of me. I felt free for real. And it was life changing. It was life changing.
So was it a gradual change or was it just like immediately?
So the information was gradual, but that one day when God just kind of did the brain dump on me, it was instant. And I had to repent. And I was just, that transformation was instant, but the learning about just, conservatives and kind of understanding that whole thing, that was gradual.
And did you receive a lot of backlash or have you found a lot of people who've been supportive in the in
Um,
are you in a community of color? Or are you like me where you're kind of an island unto yourself?
yeah. So in Jacksonville, Florida, there's like 35% black people here. Majority, Democrats on the left. But my family, they were the first people that I shared it with. And I'm like, oh my gosh, listen to this new thing. We've been voting for the wrong people. We can't do this. And my mom was like, oh my gosh, she's drunk the Kool-Aid. And, I'm like, no, mom, I've been reading. I've been like, listen, and that's when it really hit me like, okay, for truth to be presented and completely rejected because of a political party, like, that is weird. That is weird. I don't know any other group of people that do that in such with such, they're so strong and it's so loyal. It's bizarre. It is just such a bizarre thing to watch. I hate to see it because you see people, I don't care what color you are, but black people just tend to be the ones being used, like you said before. And it bothers me. It just
It's
bothers me
almost
that,
I mean, I feel like it's almost as if they're still on the plantation. That's how I feel like
yeah,
they're loyal to being slaves.
yes. I
Slaves of
hate
the
to say
mind.
it like that. I mean, I know it is like that, but I hate to say it like that because when you do, you're like, you think about your family and you think about, because they don't see themselves that way. But
Right.
it is a person who loves their master. Like, people always try to say to me, like, you just want to be accepted by white people. And I honestly could care less what they think. Like, I honestly could care. I don't care. Matter of fact, I don't care what none of y'all think. Like, this is a conviction that goes so beyond it goes beyond politics. It goes
Yes.
beyond, this is something between me and my Lord and Savior, so it has absolutely nothing to do with me trying to appease any color person, like any person. This is something that God placed on my heart, and this is between me and him. This is the mission that he gave me. And it's funny to me because it's like the people that say that I am and the one that's so concerned about, trying to be accepted by white people, they truly are the ones who are really concerned about what white folks think, because they're obsessed with um race, and they're obsessed with, white and black gaps. So it's like, well, there are whole other groups of people out here that are doing better than both of us, both groups of people. It's like, we're not going to worry about this. It's like, no, because the black folks tend to be obsessed with what white folks are doing. And I'm just not one of those people, never have been.
Right. I completely agree with that. And I think that that is part of the manipulation, because when you are so consumed with what other people think of you, you cannot improve yourself.
Exactly.
And I think that's intentional. I really do. I feel like it's intentional. And I've been wondering, how do we break through to these people? How do we make them realize, or, I mean, like, you have to be so gentle. I always say with kid gloves, right?
Me
Because
too.
you have to be so gentle, because this is cradle to the grave belief.
It is.
And it's so many generations of cradle to the grave.
Yeah.
And you're right. You can't show them scripture and say, look, what tactics do you use? Because you said that, it's way beyond politics. And I agree. Like, I didn't
Hmm.
want to, I know that you're conservative and I'm conservative, but I don't want to go into the, rah, rah, make America great again. I
Yeah.
believe all of that,
Hmm. Hmm.
but that's not the focus, in my opinion, of setting people free.
Yeah, it can't be. Especially with Black America. It is very, it's a fragile situation, but it can be done. So I ran the Black Voices for Trump office here in Jacksonville during the 2020 cycle, and we were able to increase in the urban core, Democrat to Republican, 5 to 15%, depending on the area. I mean,
That's huge.
that's huge. But I did not take the I didn't I looked at what the RNC told me to do, and I just chucked it because I was like, there is no way I'm not doing this. Like, this is not going to work. What I will say was, everybody has a want to be better. Everybody has a want and a need to grow and to be better. And that is where I focused on, like, how do you as a person want to be better, to better your life, and showing them how that ties into voting. It was very effective. And you have to almost pull back from the politics and then kind of work it work it in, because if you go straight to the facts and statistics and all of this stuff, that is not that's not it works for some people, it works for some, but it doesn't work for most, because it's such an emotional tie. It is an emotional tie to a political party.
Right.
It is, my grandmother was a Democrat. That's all they know. So it's a total different mindset. And this is what I try to get other conservatives, white conservatives, to understand, because they kind of want to go in there with the Ben Shapiro, love Ben Shapiro, but it's like the facts don't care about your feelings, but there is another side. Feelings don't care about your facts. And so, it's like you can't go in there and just, run down stats. It's just not effective. There's better ways to do that. You have to touch people in an emotional way, because that's where they are with this thing. To have people that would come into the office and say, I'm voting for Trump, black people, I'm going to vote for Trump. And I said, okay, well, let's register you to vote. Let's change your party. Oh, I just can't change. I'm not ready to make that leap. That's what you're dealing with. It's almost like somebody's going to know. Somebody's going to know that, like, it's bizarre. It is. It's a very fragile situation, but
So what let's switch gears and talk CRT. Let's talk about what they want to do to our kids.
yeah.
Um because I'll just give you an example. I was at a meeting, minorities were meeting somebody who the, they were meeting our incumbent for senator.
Hmm.
And I asked him the question. I just said, let's just call a spade a spade. Sorry if I triggered anyone with those terms, but but I just said most minorities have always been taught that they're Democrat. The Democrats are for them. Why would somebody ever vote for you?
Hmm.
And the room was like, yeah, like lots of,
Yeah.
and he gave his answer and it was wonderful. And he said, basically Republicans are for smaller government. They want out of your way to let you succeed. Much, in my opinion, a much better goal. Afterwards, we were talking, and some people were saying that they supported segregation. Even today, they support segregation in schools. They feel like, we're Black, we can do the best for our people. We're Hispanic, we can do the best for our people.
Yeah.
And I said, so what's the best? Because right now, under embracing CRT, we have at least one situation where a girl has stood on top of her table and twerked on her desk at school and said, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. And when a kid objected, the white child who objected was taken out of the class and told that that they weren't allowed to object. And the teacher was like, I know it's wrong, but I don't want to be called a racist. And all I can think of, and then I will completely let you go on this one, but all I could think of was them letting that girl stand on a desk and do that, whether or not, whatever they think they're doing, they basically said that Black people act like savages.
Hmm.
And this is the behavior that you can expect from Black people.
Uh-huh. And it's acceptable.
And it's degrading.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
completely degrading. And
Hmm.
another thing that was taught in our schools is that Ebonics is the official language of African Americans under the name of empathy, under the name of encouraging acceptance and understanding. We are learning to expect the worst of minorities, and there's so few. We're 3% here in Utah.
Mm.
So, so 3%, and those kids, the worst behaviors are being heralded as brave and stunning. So
Ugh.
it's a conversation that I can't have usually with people because everybody around me is Caucasian. And while
Yeah.
there's some people who absolutely, I'm their champion. And
Yeah.
again, just like you, I don't care if I'm their champion. I care about one thing. My child doesn't learn this crap.
Right.
And
Yep.
ideally, the people that he's going to grow up with don't learn this crap because then
Mhm.
what is going to be available for him?
Right. Oh, I mean, it is such a I first learned about critical race theory not because of the schools. I happened to follow Bodhi Bakum, and he was talking about how critical race theory had come into the church. And I was like, well, that's awful. Like, what? And so I was just listening to him and Neil Shinby were pretty much like the two people that I was learning about it from. And Neil Shinby had done like this whole chart of, like the hierarchy of critical race theory and how, the more intersections you can put on yourself, the more oppressed you are. And I was just listening to this. I'm like, God, this is awful. Like this is not the Bible. Like this is not the gospel. And so I was like, dang, that sucks for it to be in churches. I did not, I really didn't even think. I, I knew it was awful. I knew it was really evil and bad, but I didn't think that this was being presented to children. And so when I saw this happening with my own child, I knew exactly what it was because God had already prepared the way, for what was about to happen in 2020. And so one of the things that I despise is this idea that critical race theory is just teaching history. What a crock of crap. It is so misleading. It's like all of a sudden all these Black people ain't never learned about Black history until critical race theory came. Like you needed critical race theory to learn about Black history. I was on Roland Martin's show, and we like, it was pretty heated because again, he's so dedicated to Democrats and the left. He told me there was a segregated assembly that was planned here in Jacksonville, where the black children were to meet at like 9 and the white children were to meet at 10. He was telling me that that was fine. That's okay. Um, and I'm just looking at him like, you have literally all of the work that was done with civil rights and, everything that you claim you stand for in one instance, because the left says, oh, critical race theory is great. You are willing to throw all of that away. And that's many black folks when they think about critical race theory. It is, I even find black people on the right who are trying to tell me that that's what critical race theory is. I was like, y'all are smoking the same stuff that Hunter Biden is smoking, because like, have you bothered to even read what the critical race theorists themselves say? Like, if you literally just go and read what they say, it's not about history. Okay. It's not. I don't think it should be taught because it's communism. It's a communist Marxist ideology. That's where it comes from. That's what it is. Has nothing to do with history. It's just it's a tool that they use. They've tacked on race to divide, just like what Marx wanted to do. So I wish people would, at least, if you're going to argue about it, go read what they say. I'm quoting them. These are not my words. These are their words. So go argue with them.
And isn't it interesting that because when you talk to kids, I talk to a lot of teenagers, and when I talk to teenagers, they don't care. They don't want this. Yeah. They're just like, can you just leave us alone? And that they feel this, they'll say things like, why are we calling it inclusion when it's the most exclusionary thing that we've ever seen? And that's what kids are saying. So kids are understanding, they're feeling it. They are on the front lines of this battle. All I can see is a grift. That's all that I see. There's so much money to be made if you sell out to this.
Oh yeah.
And the weirdest thing to me is how many of these people who claim they believe in all of this and all of this oppression, and they're married to white people.
You have people like Robin DiAngelo, who's as white as snow, they're making all this money off of selling you and your child victimhood, telling you basically, I am supreme. I'm trying to lower myself for you. I am trying to lower myself for you, pathetic little black people, and y'all are going to pay me all of this money. And all I have to say is,
you're right, I'm guilty.
Yes, I'm guilty. I'm guilty for being supreme, and you're going to pay me all this money. And I don't understand how black people don't see that.
Well, the whole Marxist idea. What leader is living the Marxist ideology that we're all going to be equitable? You're going to live in the mansion. You're going to be the exact hate the rich person. And yet you don't. I listened to Adam Coleman. Yes. So I listened to him at I interviewed him, and one of the things that he said that the second I heard it, I was like, I have to talk to this man. Is he said, we are the only people who do not teach our children how to lead. Instead, we look for leaders.
Wow, that is so good. That guy, he is fantastic. It's true.
Yes,
it is so true. We're always trying to, what we teach is that somehow the way God made you is wrong, and that there is no hope for you.
Yes.
So when your child looks in the mirror and they see this skin that they can't do anything about, all I got, we were slaves, some Jim Crow, a little bit of civil rights. Sorry, best country in the world, just not for you. All these other black people who've made it, just not for you. Like the black folks who do, like the Roland Martins and the Stacey Abrams and all of these people who have somehow, even Oprah Winfrey, who have managed to get to extreme levels in their careers, like top levels in their careers. Somehow they look back and say the door is closed for everybody else, instead of saying, let me show you how to get here. Let me show you what I had to go through, because I don't care who you are, what color you are. If you're successful, you went through some stuff. You had to you had to fight to get to where you are. Success is not easy for anybody. But they want to make it seem like white people just wake up and they say, you know what? I want to be the CEO of a company and I'm just going to go in there with my white self and I'm just going to say, darn it, this is what I want to do. And they're just going to give it to me. We're not teaching what it takes to be successful. We're just saying it's not even an option for you. It's
Right.
what?
And again,
What?
all I can think of, I go back to the plantation and I think of the foreman on the plantation. You know, they weren't always white. Oftentimes it was the Black person who would, you know, punish their
Mhm.
brothers,
Yeah.
punish the other slaves. And that's what I see when I watch this. I see
Oh,
them
yes.
going, it's fine for me, you know. And then the worst is when then they air their grievances, like they're so oppressed today, and I'm like, can I please
Mhm.
have your level of oppression? That would be awesome.
Right. Right. Yeah. While you sit on these, I was watching. Have you ever seen Tiffany Cross from
No.
MSNBC? You know, I mean, she's like Joy Reid, but
Oh,
worse.
yuck. She's
Yeah.
the most inapt named person I've ever heard of.
Right. Um, Beautiful girl.
Mhm.
She's like very pretty lady, and it's so sad because she's so ignorant. Not that beauty makes you smart or anything like that, but it's just like, girl, I mean, you know, when you see a woman who's beautiful and smart, it's like, wow, that's so cool. But she says the craziest things. And you know, she sits on this show and she talked about how Black conservatives, how we're just, you know, saying these things for our white masters, basically. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it are the show that you're on, is it ran by Black people? No, it's not. It's owned by white people. You know, so it's like there's no way that they could actually believe this crap. So
Right.
it is literally a grift beyond grifts. It's the
Yeah.
ultimate grift.
Yeah. And it's heartbreaking because they will sell their soul. I was in church yesterday and just that verse, what good is a man's wealth if he loses his soul?
Yeah.
And I just sit there going, how do people look themselves in the mirror? How do people look themselves in the mirror when they are willing to sell out children?
Children. Yeah.
And like, and how are people of any color embracing this when 3 years ago Martin Luther King would have been the most admired person in America,
Hmm.
and now he's problematic.
Yeah. Critical race theory does not believe in Martin Luther King's idea. They don't. They say it. You know, they don't, they that because it's not about equality. It's equity, which is Marxism. So, you know, people, first of all, you know, our schools are just pathetic at this point that children have no idea of what communism and Marxism it even is. They have no idea. So when it's presented to them, they don't know. They're just like, oh, okay, whatever. It's equity. You know,
They
they
also
have no
think it's
idea.
cool. They think it's great. They
Oh,
think
yeah.
it's going to be kumbaya, holding hands, and nobody's going to have to work. They're just going to work if they want to, and it'll be a pleasure. I just interviewed a man from Africa who
Mhm.
escaped at at the risk of being shot. It was
Wow.
shoot to kill, and his country, Eritrea, they have already embraced all of this. So they have free college, and they have uh, no one gets paid society. Yeah,
What?
no one gets paid. So and
Slavery.
and and that's exactly what he said. He said, I was a slave. And he's just about to get his citizenship here. And he's just like, no. And he does not believe that America is at the cusp of turning into Marxist. You know, he sees the stuff, but he's like, American patriots are, they love America too much to ever let go. And I hope he's right. I'm kind of black pilled. So when you go and you tell parents, hey, stand up, this is about your children, and they go, oh well, I don't want someone to call me a racist. And you're like, dude, I get called a racist regularly.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm
And
like,
worse.
yeah. Oh my gosh, the attacks they have.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and see, even still, I don't understand that. Like, that is some really good brainwashing where even you won't advocate for your own child to have a better future. You will rather sit back and because this is what I tell people when I go and speak. Whatever you think you're protecting by being silent, when the Marxists and the communists take over, that is not going to exist. Your property that you think, okay, well, I can't say anything because I'm gonna lose my house and my job, my house and car. Look, you ain't gonna have that anyway if you were quiet. So you might as well open up your mouth. That's how this country works. It's a bottom up kind of system. You have to do that. That's how it works here. This whole thing of like waiting for the expert, waiting for that leader to come, somebody else to do it. No, absolutely not. I mean, you can't have my kid. And I'm not sorry. You cannot have my child. I will go and eat bread and potatoes and live in a shack before you have my child. That's my line.
Do you remember when parents used to say, you'll do that over my dead body? That's the way we used to think. But
Yeah.
now we have these little things, these little boxes here, right? We have these.
Hmm.
And they let us think that, nothing's really a problem. I'll just go get lost in Pinterest. I'll just
Right.
go get lost on TikTok or social
Yeah.
media. Meanwhile, we are being invaded.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, our kids, again, they're on the front line.
Hmm.
And it's like you have to draw that line in the sand and say, not my kid. And
It,
go ahead.
Yeah. And when we were discovering that when parents were realizing that pornography was in schools through the libraries and the dismissiveness of some parents, to me that was like the thing that let me know America is in a bad way. You mean to tell me we don't even there's no righteous anger that rises up when children are being shown sexually explicit materials in school? That it is unbelievable. How in the world can you have a society that doesn't know and have a righteous anger that boils up within them when porn is being shown to children? You people get mad when their own husbands are looking at porn, but you won't raise a voice for your child being shown this film. I don't understand it.
Well, we live in a time of postmodernism and
True.
the idea that we're not supposed to know what truth is. So we have
Yeah.
you can watch pictures, and I'm going to be really blunt here, but you can see pictures of seventh graders masturbating in
Hmm.
comic form, and they're like, well, that's just helpful in teaching health. um i have I have a child who's of about that age, and that's not what the average boy is doing unless they're exposed to it. And
Exactly.
when they're exposed to it on things like TikTok, they're exposed to it on things that parents should be saying, no, not old enough for this stuff. And they also
Yeah.
should realize where it's coming from, because TikTok, which is done in China, does
Hmm.
not allow the same things for their own children.
Isn't that funny?
The same thing with Zuckerberg and Gates and these people who push constant media on our kids, who are like, oh, let us give you the Chromebook.
Yeah.
They send their children to schools, or they sent their children, and Gates is because his kids are older, but
Hmm.
they send their children to schools that are textbook heavy,
Hmm.
not computer heavy.
Right.
And they're the ones who want to control our children. What you have to understand, all of this is a social contagion.
Hmm.
What I Probably the thing that makes me the most frustrated is the things that successfully worked to get African Americans to the point that they live uh, in a place where they cannot see and they just kind of follow blindly.
Hmm.
They worked on that for like 50 years.
Yeah.
So they work on that for 50 years and then they go, bingo, it's worked. No matter what we throw at them, no matter if we're starving, no matter if we're telling them that they're not smart enough to use the internet to vote, no matter what we tell them,
Hmm.
they're going to believe it and they're going to follow in line. So
That's
let's take
it.
all of those tactics and put them on our kids,
Yeah. To everyone.
every kid. And let's, this whole idea of let's queering our kids. This is
Mhm.
not saying, let's support LGBTQ,
Mhm.
whatever your viewpoint is on that.
Mhm.
What we're
Mhm.
saying is let's other our kids. Let's get rid of reality. Let's get
Yep.
rid of truth. Let's get rid of the honesty that
Mhm.
if you're going to succeed in life, it's going to take hard work.
Right.
And in
Yeah.
the meantime, they're giving them this language like, we need to get rid of the individual. If
Mhm.
you don't know that that is communism, we need to get rid of the individual and support the collective.
Mhm.
That is communism. And that's not like,
Communism.
it's not let's put a foil hat on, right? I mean,
Right.
fully, that's what it is. And we have to call things out for what they are.
Yeah. And now I feel like we've been saying communist, communist, communist so much that because it's so much in society when we see it, those of us who are aware, we're like, oh yeah, that's communism. Now I feel like that is not even being, I mean, you ever seen Stranger Things? The kids are playing. Kids in the 80s knew that the communists were bad. The kids today don't even know what a communist is.
That's intentional. That's
It's
that's
insane.
intentional. We
Yeah.
know the kids have a very strong viewpoint on what's going on in the world today because it's the only thing that they're allowed to hear.
Yep.
They know who Hitler is and they know that he was a bad guy,
Hmm.
but they don't know who Mao was.
No, they don't.
There's so many things that they don't know, and that's intentional.
Yeah.
If you get on well, when you're making a thumbnail for YouTube and if you
Yeah.
use Canva, right? If I
Yeah.
type in socialism on Canva, it's literally a globe with people holding hands and it's just like beautiful. This is the way that it's going to look. And they don't
Mm,
realize that it's the biggest form of communism we've ever seen. It's global
yeah.
with and then they're always like eat the rich, but it's the rich, the extremely mega rich that are pushing the ideas in the first place. They're the ones
Yeah.
who are funding all of our kids' education.
They want to remain, they want their legacy to continue off the backs of your kids.
Yes,
They don't want your children to have skills and they just want your kids to work for them, to build
slaves.
their things, to build their dreams, we need that labor force because I mean, they just want it for themselves. You are a tool. You're just a tool to them. Your child means absolutely nothing to them. And they want their revolution. They want it and they mean it. They've been working at this thing for over 50 years. You think they're trying to give up? No, they feel like they're right on the cusp. And then if it don't work now, guess what they're going to do? They're going to reorganize and just do it again because in their crazy minds, they believe we just need to keep trying this thing until we get it right because they believe that there is some type of perfection that you can get on earth. They believe in that the human being can be perfected. That's kind of where these ideas start from. This We can transcend humanity. We can take humanity into, like you were talking about, postmodernism. We can make it our own reality. We don't have to believe in objective truth. And it's weird because you can take those same people, and if I say, okay, well, let me throw your behind off this building, I bet you believe in gravity. I bet you believe in that.
Right.
You're not talking about subjective truth when we're talking about gravity and you tumbling off of a building. You
Or
know
when
what
you're
I mean?
talking about equity, right? When you talk about equity they're not going to be equitable with the rest of us.
No,
So,
it's just
and
they want to flip the power. So they're like, in their mind, we're going to have all the power, but still there's going to be those other ones on the bottom because they want people to have power over because
right,
otherwise what would be the point? But
right,
it's
which is they're racist. They're filled with hate and they have this fantasy, in my opinion. They have a fantasy where they're the masters. And then what happens? Then history repeats itself because guess what? The people on the bottom are going to revolt all over again.
yep.
So it just repeats itself. And instead of improving, instead of moving towards progress,
Mm-hmm.
we just repeat this ugly, ugly, vicious cycle of
It's
hatred.
regressive.
So, how do we, what are the practical tactics? Because I feel that what we need to do is let go of tribalism. We need to stop thinking of ourselves as collectives and to
Mm-hmm.
start celebrating the individual. How can we do that with the different ages, different age groups? How do we build unity in a world that is literally trying? I mean, it would get an A plus in trying to be um, trying to be divisive.
I would say that we have to start doing this in small community groups where we're coming together and you are having you just you learn some history, you learn, and you have to tie it to today so they can see the through line. Because I think if we leave it just historical, I our kids are so far behind in critical thinking and things like that. They're not tying it all together to show that through line where all of this, it's the story isn't over. Like we're still writing it. And I think we need to show kids that if you do X, you get Y. You know what I mean? We have to start showing them how this all adds up together so they can, and I mean, at least that's what I've done with my children. And it's been very successful. They are from going from where I was with this whole like, oh, if you're black, you're, a victim and all of that stuff, and actually speaking that over my kids. And so for your audience, when you are telling your children this, you are speaking a curse over your children. If you are telling them, it would be just like if a mother was like, oh, you look just like your father and he's no good. When you are telling your child that when they look in the mirror, there is nothing good about them. Oh, you're black, so it's going to be this for you. It's negative, it's negative, it's negative. What do you think you're going to get out of that kid? So I just think I flipped that script and just really gone back to the Bible and just showed my kids this is what God says about you. So instilling those values into them gives them so much confidence. My having those conversations and tying it all in, and it does take a lot of talking. It takes a lot because my daughter, like, you'll be like, oh mom, everything is not about this, but I take when we're out in the we're doing things, and I'll show them, okay, you see how that happened, like, tying it all together. And so it takes a lot. It's a lot of undoing, but it can be done.
And so, did you have to do that? So you were saying that you started off when they were young, giving them that narrative of they're oppressed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when you changed, and I'm wondering about this for people who have started to buy into the anti-racist narrative, but that's a great idea. And they're starting, those people who might be listening who are going, it just doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
How do you change that when you have just, I mean, any parent, if you're a good parent, you are kind of indoctrinating your children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you are training up a
Absolutely.
child in the way they should go.
That's
So
right.
if you're
Yeah.
anti-racist and you started off with, the world is America is systemically racist,
Uh-huh.
and you've taught these lessons to your kids,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're waking up and you're going, I don't want this for my kids. How do those conversations go? I mean, is it as hard for the kids to accept that flip as it is for you as an adult when you went through
The
it?
kids get it because when you start encouraging them, they need it. They like it. And so instead of always saying to them, oh, well, there's no hope. Now you're saying, listen, you can be anything you want to be. We don't typically say it in that way. We'll say, oh, America's systemically racist. We'll say it in different ways. But if you wouldn't tell your child that their success depends on someone else, if you wouldn't tell them that, then you shouldn't be telling them that America is systemically racist. You got to be consistent in your logic.
So I do think that America is systemically racist.
Mhm.
but not in the way that it's presented. I feel like our education system is systemically racist in that teachers truly are taught to believe that Black and brown children cannot compete at the same level as white children. When they teach our kids that,
Yeah.
generation after generation after
Mhm.
generation, and they have the biggest influence, to me, that's the exact definition of systemic racism.
Yeah.
Oh, and I know that that's not what the anti-racist movement would call,
Right.
but in terms of logic and reason,
Mhm. Mhm.
when two kids come to school and they're both like, woohoo, it's the first day of school and I'm going to be anything,
Yeah.
and you tell Shaniqua, no, you're not,
Yep.
and you tell
Sorry.
Beth, yes, you are,
Right.
you know, then
Yeah.
that to me is crushing their souls, and we're giving them permission to crush our children's souls. How do we wake these people up?
Yeah.
So I just want to ask, I don't know about you, but I'm not often in circles, and I'm trying to get into them. I'm trying to have conversations with people who are still in that place of my blackness is my virtue.
Right.
If you could tell them anything, what would you say?
I would say, who are you? What who are you really? Um, okay. Okay, yes, I can see that you're Black. Okay, fine. But who are you beyond that? And then they're going to go into who they are. And what do you want to become? And then they're going to tell you that. And then I would ask them, how do you get there? And then they're going to tell you. And then I would go back. Does any of that have anything to do? If you did all of those things right, would it matter that you're Black? Because if they say, because this is, if you say yes, then that means that there is something different about a Black brain. This is what they're saying to you. They are, when somebody is trying to tell you that because you happen to have a melanin count, because everybody has melanin, everybody has melanin except for like albinos, albinos. So because you have a high level of melanin, that your brain somehow performs differently, then you are in agreement with the KKK. You are in agreement with white supremacy, because that's what that means, that your melanin count changes your brain. It changes how you work. It changes how you, that is exactly what eugenics and racial white supremacists and KKK, that's what they believed, that there was something
In your
naturally different
DNA.
from, yes, in your DNA. And so you have to reconcile that. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say, because I'm Black, my brain is different. Girl, who is gonna say who's going to say that? And so that's what I would say to them. Are you real? Do you mean to tell me that because you happen to, are you going to tell your child that because you have more melanin, your brain works different than somebody else who has less? Come on now.
That's pretty powerful. I'm usually like, oh, something joyful and happy, and you're like, no, I'm gonna get right into it, and this is what we're doing. But you know what? It's awesome, because sometimes people, love is not always coddling. In fact, love is very seldom coddling.
That's
And
right.
the work that we're doing, especially the work that we're doing as Christians, because I am a Christian as well, and the work that we're doing as Christians,
Yeah.
we cannot I always say I like to be a light. I like to be like a little candle shining. But right now it's
Yes.
not the time to be a candle. Right now it's the time to be a freaking foghorn.
Yeah.
They're
Exactly.
saying,
Yes.
wake up.
Wake.
They're telling you what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And just like every other Marxist takeover,
Mm-hmm.
once they've got their people out and they've fought and they've been part of the revolution,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to line them up and say, you go to jail and you get shot.
That's it.
And
That
so,
is it.
and even if they
Yeah.
don't actually do that, because that could be hyperbolic,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to destroy you.
You will be crushed.
You don't think like the Cory Bushes and, these mid-level Congress entry people who are very useful for the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
when the elites have what they want,
Mm-hmm.
they're down too.
They're the first to go because they know the inside baseball.
And so people just have to, it's really sad because it's very hard to know that you've been lied to. It's like,
Yeah.
as you said in the beginning, getting out of a cult.
It's a cult. And yes, you when it is hard to walk away, but I would urge, my God, what is it serving you? Has being loyal to this thing served you? Has it served you well in any way? If it hasn't, which I know it hasn't, what's wrong with considering just a consideration? Nobody's asking you to go register Republican and go volunteer with the Republican Party, okay? We're just saying, consider another thought.
Well, and when you have that conversation between, because there are Republicans who've lost their ever loving mind too. There are definitely
Oh, yes,
Republicans who are in a
absolutely.
cult who believe all sorts of insanity that you're like, no, things aren't going to
Yep,
turn around tomorrow, and if this is all part of the great plan, like that's not. There's conversations to be had on
yep,
both sides. I just urge
absolutely.
people to stop being used, to start
Hmm.
thinking for themselves.
Yes.
Because when you can think for yourself, then you have a solid foundation. When other
Yeah,
people are putting ideas into your head, you have no idea where you're going to go from, you're moving like a wave and you have no
yeah.
idea where you're going to go and you're going to follow things that you know are stupid. Guess
Hmm.
what? A 4-year-old is not a cat. You know, they might think they're a cat until nap time, but then they wake up and they're ready,
Right.
they don't want to eat cat food for lunch.
Right.
So, I mean, there are simple things that are true.
Yeah.
And one of those simple things that are true is that African Americans have been used
Hmm.
on both sides
Hmm.
forever. And another truth is that we have intrinsic worth, regardless of the fact that there are people who would like to wash that away and say that
Yeah.
we only have that as a collective. So
Yeah.
I am so glad that we were able to have this conversation.
Me
And
too.
um, what is it that you do if people want to follow you, or if
Sure.
actually you're in Florida, correct?
Yes, I'm in Florida, and you can follow me on Twitter at I'm Quisha K. It's Quisha. And probably the best thing to do is go to my website, KishaKing.com, QUISHAKING.com. And all of my info is there, my social media, my YouTube. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm really trying to grow that as well. And just, yeah, follow me to keep up with what's going on.
I so appreciate this conversation, and hopefully it'll get the ball rolling and people will start thinking for themselves. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carrie, for having me.
Thanks. Bye.